Hey, what is going on, guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down the patch 10.6 tier list best champions for every single role for this patch. And just one thing to note before we get started, I'm not going to be ranking Wukong anywhere on the tier list for 10.6. It's pretty difficult to accurately rank a champion after they get a rework. It's going to take us at least a patch or so to really understand how strong the champion is for solo queue. Alright, so if we start things off up in the top lane, we got a little bit of movement in this patch, but overall the meta is going to stay pretty stable as to where it was in 10.5. So in the S tier there, we have one newcomer being Hecarim. Now this isn't really because of the change to his ultimate. He's getting a buff to his ultimate in this patch, but that's not the change that's going to buff him a ton for top lane. It's more so the teleport buff there. The teleport buff and you running Ignite TP on the Hecarim top in 10.6, it's going to be really good for him. What you could do a lot of the time is that if you have your TP up, if you got your Ignite up and you're level 6, you pretty much get yourself a guaranteed kill, because if you're TPing in, you get that movement speed bonus from the TP along with your E, gives you a ton of damage from your passive. You're not going to lose out on a 1v1 like at all, so you can just find yourself getting a ton of free kills now in this coming patch here. And I feel like in this patch right now in 10.5, Hecarim top's not even that bad. He's very underrated up in the top lane, has a lot of pretty good matchups. So in this patch here, he will probably be the most underrated top laner that you can play. Couple other notable changes for this patch. We saw Darius get a pretty decent nerf. He got 3 different nerfs in this patch. Nerf to his W damage, his W mana cost, along with his E mana cost. So with those 3 nerfs there, he's going to be dropping down into A tier for 10.6. And then for Garen, even though he is getting nerfed, he's still going to remain an S tier champion for 10.6. He's getting his E crit damage reduced in this patch, but you're perfectly fine with Garen just going for like a Dead Man's or Hysteric second or third item. So if the nerf really does hurt him, if it does hurt the crit build, he can just go over to more of a tanky build and still be perfectly fine. Also, he's getting his MR per level reduced in this patch, so that's only going to hurt him in those AP matchups, does not affect him at all in any AD matchup. And when you take a look at his most played matchups at the moment, you only have Mordekaiser as the 1 AP champion in his top 10 most played matchups in 10.5 right now, so that's not really going to change in 10.6, and Garen will remain an S tier champion. So overall for top lane, the meta is pretty wide open right now for 10.6. A lot of really good things you can play in both the S tier and in the A tier. If you want to play a bruiser champion, there's a lot of options at the moment. The Fiora, the Camille, the Kled, the Shen, all got indirectly buffed in last patch in 10.5, so they're very strong picks at the moment. Some pretty good tanks right now up in the top lane as well. The Maokai is really strong right now. You can play the Malphite, the Shen. I think the Poppy is a very underrated pick there in the A tier. She can do very well into things like the Camille, who's being picked a lot more, into the Fiora, can do pretty well into the Jax and the Shen. So that's a pick there that can be very versatile. You can play her with a more aggressive build, you can play her more tanky, so she's a pretty underrated pick right now in my opinion for 10.6. So if we take a look at the jungle now, really no significant movement for 10.6. We did see Riot go ahead and like buff a lot of these unconventional jungle champions, being like the Teemo, the Zyra, but I'm not going to rank those champions for 10.6 here, just because the last time they ended up buffing the champions like Garrett, Darius, and Talon, Zed, those champions didn't end up being very strong at all for solo queue, so I'll wait a patch. If they end up being alright, I might throw them into the tier list here for jungle, but at the moment, I'm not going to be rating them for 10.6. Overall though, for jungle, like pretty much whatever was good in last patch is going to be good here for 10.6, so in the S tier, a lot of different good champions right now at the moment. If you want to play a good early game impact jungler, then you got things like the Olaf and the Elise, the Nunu, who are very strong picks right now. Shaco is getting a decent nerf in this patch to his ultimate. His clone's basic attack total AD ratio is being reduced from 75% down to 60%, but in my opinion, not going to drop him out of S tier. Even if that nerf does end up affecting him a little bit, AP Shaco is perfectly viable right now. You could just look to go for that build setup in this patch, and he would still remain an S tier champion. A couple other junglers are getting some small changes. We're seeing some small buffs to Kayn, not going to affect his placing on the tier list though. Kindred's also getting a couple of small buffs, but again, not going to move her up on the tier list. And then for Hecarim, like I said earlier on in the video, the TP changes are more so going to be what buffs Hecarim in 10.6 here. The change to his ultimate, increasing the fear duration based on the distance traveled, I just don't see that being enough to really move him up from A tier into S tier for 10.6. Moving on to the mid lane now, not too many significant changes overall. We did see a couple different champions get buffed in this patch. Xerath and both Veigar got some pretty decent changes. Xerath W and his ultimate got buffed. Veigar's Q got a pretty nice base damage buff. So both those two champions are going to be moving into A tier now. They're going to be pretty decent picks, not going to be super insane or anything, not going to be S tier champions, but they're now at least going to be pretty strong picks that you can play in solo queue. Twisted Fate did end up getting a buff to his W, to his blue card AP ratio, and to his red card AP ratio. It's not going to be quite enough though to bump him from A tier up into S tier. He would need one more somewhat significant change to bump him up into S tier. However, if you can play a good TF in this patch, he's definitely going to be a very strong pick. If you know how to play macro with this champion, if you can play the side lanes, then his blue card's going to deal a lot of damage to towers now once you get a couple items here. So you're going to have really good split push presence in 10.6. So if you're an experienced TF player, he would be worthwhile to pick back up here for this coming patch. And then two other champions getting changed, Anivia and Ryze. Pretty insignificant changes overall. The Anivia change is more so just a quality of life change. It is going to help her out a little bit for sure. Having that extra chill duration there from her ultimate allows her a bit more time to get that extra damage off from her E. So it is going to come into effect, honestly, in a lot of different situations. So Anivia, always a very underrated mid lane champion. So if you want to pick something up that's very niche that can be a pretty strong pick, then Anivia would be a very good choice for 10.6. For Ryze though, he's still going to remain down in B tier. I don't see the change really affecting him too much, and he's still going to be a relatively underwhelming mid lane pick. So if we head down to the bot lane now, first for AD carry here, not too many changes to this role in 10.6, but Aphelios did end up getting some very significant changes, 3 different nerfs in this patch, and even though by themselves, like if they were just one nerf by themselves, it wouldn't be that big of a deal, but all 3 of them combined are going to be enough to drop him from A tier down into B tier. He was even like borderline B tier for majority of elos in last patch, so there's just going to be much better AD carry champions you can pick up now for 10.6. And then for Senna, she's getting 2 different nerfs in this patch to her passive. The amount of AD you get per stack is being lowered from 1 down to 0.75, and then the cooldown on your passive to where you can proc it on champions is being increased from 4 seconds up to 6 seconds in the early game. So overall, this is a pretty significant change, but considering Senna is sitting at a 56% win rate right now in solo queue, she's absolutely insane. This change will not be enough to drop her out of S tier. It's going to be pretty significant, but she will still remain one of the strongest AD carries for the coming patch. For Draven, he is getting a buff to his W in this patch. The bonus movement speed from that is being increased by 10% at all ranks, so it's not the change a lot of Draven players were looking for. Obviously, Draven players would prefer a damage buff or something like that, but technically, when you think about it, like getting extra movement speed allows you to close the gap quicker, allows you to stay onto your target longer, which will allow you to deal more damage. So technically, if you think about it, it is a damage buff for this patch, but overall, it's not going to bump him up into S tier. Draven's still going to remain a pretty solid A tier pick. I don't think he's terrible right now. I don't think he's as terrible as a lot of people make him out to be. So overall for the AD carry role, it is pretty balanced at the moment. A lot of good S tier champions there, some pretty good A tier picks as well. Not too many super weak picks at the moment. I'd say the only champions that I would really look to stay away from in this patch right now would be the Xayah and the Kai'Sa, but other than that, I think a lot of picks right now are great for solo queue. If you know how to play them, if you can play them at a good level, then you can have success with a lot of different AD picks in 10.6. And then lastly here, to round it out for the support role, we did see a few different supports get changed in this patch. Soraka got the most significant changes to her Q, so the move speed on that got increased along with the heal, so she's going to be jumping back up into A tier. For Morgana, she ended up getting a nice buff to her shield strength. She also got a buff to her movement speed, so pretty good changes. She's going to be a lot better into like those more aggressive supports now in 10.6, but she will remain in A tier. The change is not enough to jump her up into S tier. Now for the Senna pick, she is getting those nerfs in this patch like we talked about for AD carry, so she will remain in A tier for support for 10.6. I don't think the changes will be enough to drop her down into B tier, so Senna is still going to be a pretty good pick for both the AD carry and the support role. Now, if you notice there, I do still have Tahm Kench placed down in the C tier. If you were to just take a look at his win rate over the past couple patches, you'd think this champion is like an A tier pick at the moment. He's actually got like a 51% win rate right now in solo queue, but when you dive a little bit deeper into things, you notice that he's got a 58% or like 57% win rate with Senna, and then with every other AD carry in the game, he's got like a 44% win rate. So most Tahm Kench players right now are only playing him with Senna with that sending fasting strategy. strategies. So if you're playing that strategy, Tahm Kench is a fine pick. He's an A tier champion right now, even an S tier champion, but with any other AD carry in the game, he's still a C tier pick, which is why I do still have him down there for 10.6. And then one pick that's kind of come up out of the blue over the past couple patches is the Maokai support pick. So Maokai support, always been a very niche pick. It's never really been meta, but it's never really been something that's weak either. It's always a pretty strong pick in solo queue. It's seen a steady increase in pick rate over the past couple patches here. A lot more players are picking it up. It's got one of the highest win rates in the game right now for any support champion, and it's overall just a great support pick. Really good peel in his kit, very easy to play. Like if you're playing against a heavy engage support as well, something like a Leona or a Blitz or a Nautilus, you do really well into those picks because you just root them, you knock them away, you got great peel for your AD carry. So he's just overall a very underrated support pick, great engage potential, great peel potential, and a pick that if you're looking for a new support to add to your pool, I would recommend Maokai here for 10.6. Alright, so that's going to round out the video, guys. Those were the best champions for every single role right now for patch 10.6. So hopefully this does give you a pretty good jump on the meta. Hopefully you do have a pretty good understanding of what's strong right now that you can look to pick up for solo queue. So with that being said, if you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you have yet to already. So thanks for watching, have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.